Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something complex at the Alabama Department of Corrections, the ADOC. There's this fundamental tension, really.
That's right. You have these two completely different stories emerging from our sources.
Exactly. On one side, there's this, aspirational push, high-tech rehabilitation, turning inmates into returning citizens. Sounds great.
But then, starkly contrasting that, you have this comprehensive U.S. Department of Justice complaint.
And it paints a devastating picture. We're talking systemic violence, decaying facilities, life-threatening constitutional violations across 13 men's prisons.
13. It's extensive.
So our mission today is really to explore that gap. How does this proactive, dismal future stack up against the urgent need to fix the dangerous reality happening right now?
And the legal weight here is significant. We're talking about the DOJ's second amended complaint filed under CRIPA, that's a Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act.
BRIPA, right.
Yeah. This isn't just a suggestion. It means the federal government could potentially force major reforms, court-ordered changes, if the state doesn't fix these deep constitutional problems.
And what are the core violations alleged?
There are four main areas. Failure to protect prisoners from prisoner-on-prisoner violence, from sexual abuse, from excessive force by staff, and from just profoundly unsafe physical conditions in the prisons themselves.
And the complaint mentions negotiations?
It does. It notes that negotiations started back in 2019, but, 4 years later, they failed to correct these unconstitutional conditions. So the problems persisted.
Okay, let's start with the vision side then. ADOC's big tech push. In 2021, they announced these personal education devices, PCDs, for all inmates.
Yes, for all inmates, and crucially, free of charge to the inmates and the state. It signals, on the surface at least, a real commitment to rehabilitation using modern tools.
And what's actually on these devices?
It's quite comprehensive, actually. You've got K-12 programs, GED prep, even post-secondary and college courses, plus vocational training, job search tools, personal finance, self-help stuff.
Things that could genuinely help someone prepare for release.
Exactly. And, importantly, secure e-messaging and phone services. That's a big piece.
How so? Why is that particularly important beyond just staying in touch?
Well, it provides an official, traceable way for inmates to communicate with loved ones. The idea is partly to combat the really dangerous underground market for contraband cell phones, which fuels a lot of violence and debt.
Ah, okay. Commissioner Dunn framed this whole thing, didn't he?
He did. He called it an important shift from warehousing criminals to rehabilitating returning citizens. The stated aim is clear. Give inmates tools for personal growth, which, research suggests can reduce violence inside and lower recidivism after release.
But here's where it gets tricky for me, connecting the dots. ADOC leadership, even the governor, they admit the buildings are falling apart, violence is out of control. Yet they roll out this massive, cutting-edge tech program.
Right. That's the key policy point, isn't it? The sources are clear. ADOC didn't have to pay for it.
They didn't.
No. The contract provider, Securus Technologies, LLC, they took on all the financial and operational responsibility for the PEDs. Zero initial cost, zero ongoing investment needed from ADOC's budget.
So ADOC gets the positive PR of a modern initiative, but only because it costs them nothing. Doesn't that just underline that the real problem is a lack of core funding for basic safety and infrastructure?
I think that's a fair conclusion. The vision is there, and it aligns with what many reform advocates propose. People talk about using VR for job training.
Like plumbing or construction skills.
Exactly. Or AI to tailor rehab programs. Gamification even to boost engagement. The PEDs fit that future vision. But ADOC could only implement this part of the vision because an outside company paid for it. It wasn't a state investment in that sense.
And this tech is meant to support their bigger pre-release and reentry program, right? The one focused on helping inmates from day one with education, therapy, housing, jobs.
Yes, it's all part of that stated mission for successful reintegration. Connect them with resources before they leave.
It sounds good on paper, a solid plan.
It's a fantastic plan, if you're guaranteed to survive your sentence in a safe environment. But that's where the DOJ complaint throws a harsh light on the ground reality. It suggests the current system struggles even with basic survival, let alone this kind of high-tech personalized reform.
Okay, let's pivot then from the digital promise to, the grim reality documented by the DOJ. The danger is systemic, pervasive. This fact is chilling. The homicide rate in Alabama's men's prisons in 2018, it was more than 7 times the national average for state prisons.
7 times. It's an almost unbelievable baseline of failure. And it wasn't a blip. The trend was worsening.
How so?
Well, system-wide, documented prisoner-on-prisoner homicides went from 5 in fiscal year 2015 up to 16 in FY 2020. And there's a serious concern about transparency, about underreporting.
What do you mean?
For FY 2021, ADLC's own official statistics showed only 1 homicide. But media investigations and advocate reports documented at least 10 prisoner-on-prisoner homicides during that same period.
A huge discrepancy. That obscures the true scale of the danger.
Absolutely. And the details behind the numbers are brutal. You mentioned a 31-year-old prisoner stabbed to death at Donaldson in 21, a 58-year-old choked at Limestone that same year.
And the sources even point to misclassification. A death from multiple stab wounds at Kilby in 2018, classified by ADOC as natural. That's deeply concerning.
It prevents understanding the real causes and what is driving this violence. The DOJ points squarely at the internal prison economy, fueled by contraband.
Weapons, phones, drugs.
Definitely drugs. Toxicology reports routinely find substances like meth, synthetic cannabinoids K2, spice in prisoners who died violently or unexpectedly.
So the failure to control contraband creates this lethal marketplace inside.
Precisely. Inmates incur drug debts they can't possibly pay. And that inability to pay leads directly, predictably, to beatings, to kidnappings within the prison, to sexual assault, and ultimately to homicide.
There are examples of that link.
Yes, tragically. Like a prisoner strangled at Donaldson in 2019. He left a note saying he feared someone had put a hit on him because of a debt he owed. The connection is often explicit.
And you mentioned sexual abuse. Is that tied into this same cycle?
Very much so, yes. It follows a similar devastating pattern. Reported prisoner-on-prisoner sexual assaults surged, with over 600 incidents documented in just an 18-month window between late 2016 and mid-2018.
Over 600.
And often it's directly linked to drug debts. There's a case from Staten in 2021 where a prisoner was assaulted by multiple inmates specifically because of a debt.
And reporting these incidents, is that straightforward?
Far from it. The DOJ found evidence that staff sometimes discourage reporting or they'll classify assaults as unsubstantiated if the victim, likely terrified or traumatized, doesn't want to press formal charges. So again, the official numbers likely understate the crisis.
Okay, so we have pervasive violence fueled by contraband and debt. Let's talk about the systemic failures that allow this to happen. Overcrowding seems central.
It absolutely is. The DOJ complaint and ADOC's own data confirm it's not just a minor issue. It's extreme and directly linked to the violence.
What are the numbers?
Well, Alabama's prisons for men were originally designed to hold about 9,462 people. But in late 2021, they were housing 14,250.
Wow, that's over 150% capacity system-wide. Are some worse than others?
Oh, much worse. Staten was reportedly at 265% of its design capacity. Bibb was at 193%. Imagine living or working in that environment. It's just unsustainable.
And this overcrowding is directly linked to staffing problems, right?
Inescapably linked. You have far too many prisoners crammed into decaying buildings with far too few officers to supervise them.
How bad is the staffing shortage?
It's critical. In early 2021, ADOC had only filled about 1,365 correctional officer positions. They were authorized for 3,124.
So less than half the authorized positions were filled?
Correct. You see huge vacancy rates. Bullock facility was reportedly 60% vacant. Donaldson, where we noted those homicides, was over 58% vacant.
With vacancy rates like that, how can staff possibly maintain control or safety?
They can't, effectively. The DOJ argues this severe lack of supervision is what enables the free flow of contraband, the uncontrolled prisoner movement, and it also, paradoxically perhaps, contributes directly to excessive force by the staff who are there.
How does understaffing lead to more force? That seems counterintuitive.
When staff feel constantly outnumbered, unsafe, and overwhelmed, they can resort to force more quickly, sometimes disproportionately, to maintain control or exert authority. It becomes a tool used out of fear or frustration, not just as a last resort.
And the DOJ found evidence of this.
Yes, a pattern of excessive force. Force used against inmates who are already compliant or restrained. Force used as retaliation. And practices designed to cover it up, falsifying reports, moving injured inmates to segregation so their injuries aren't seen until they heal.
Are there specific examples cited?
Yes, unfortunately. An officer breaking a compliant prisoner's arm with a baton during a simple shakedown at Draper in 2020. Multiple officers at Bullock in 2021 kicking, punching, hitting a handcuffed prisoner with batons.
And it's led to deaths.
It has. A prisoner at Ventress died in 2019 from blunt force trauma to the head. The cause was determined to be excessive force by staff.
So violence from inmates, violence from staff, extreme overcrowding, critical understaffing. And then there's the physical buildings themselves.
Right. And this isn't just an observation from outsiders. Top ADOC officials, Commissioner Dunn, Governor Ivey herself, they've publicly stated the facilities are structurally failing, suffering from crumbling infrastructure. They know.
Let's break down those physical failures. What are the most immediate dangers?
Well, first, basic fire safety is apparently non-existent. The DOJ found that none of the 13 men's prisons investigated had a fully functional fire alarm system. None.
That's terrifying. And environmental safety.
Critically compromised. Failing HVAC systems are a major issue. This isn't just about comfort, it's about life and death. A prisoner died from hyperthermia, extreme overheating at Donaldson in December 2020.
Hyperthermia inside a prison cell.
Yes. His body temperature was recorded at 109 degrees Fahrenheit. The cell temperature itself was measured between 101 and 104 degrees. The heating system was malfunctioning, creating deadly conditions.
Unbelievable. And basic sanitation.
It's described as horrific in many places. System-wide issues with exposed insulation, pervasive mold, infestations of rats and cockroaches. Specific facilities like Fountain and Draper had documented raw sewage backup.
Raw sewage.
Yeah, and places like St. Clair mentioned lacking basic working toilets or even cleaning supplies for inmates to maintain hygiene. It's an environment that actively breeds disease and despair.
Okay, so let's bring these two worlds back together. We have this high-tech, zero-cost to the state digital education initiative rolling out.
Aimed at rehabilitation and reentry.
Right. But it's being deployed into an environment defined by, well, rats, sewage, extreme heat, constant fear of violence, critical understaffing, and documented constitutional violations. How can the tech initiative possibly succeed in that context?
That's the crux of the issue, isn't it? The foundational environment seems completely counterproductive to the goals of rehabilitation. The current model's incentive structure is broken by the sheer danger and decay.
Is there an alternative model proposed?
Yes, reform advocates push for a comprehensive, multi-level approach. It's fundamentally about earning privileges and parole eligibility through demonstrated change, but crucially, it has to start by establishing safety and basic human dignity.
What does that model look like?
It's typically structured in levels. Level 1, maybe called Revive, focuses on basics: accountability, counseling, perhaps meditation or spiritual guidance. Taking responsibility.
Okay, step 1.
Level 2, Rebuild, would mandate things like earning a GED or an associate's degree and learning a real marketable trade. Building skills.
Level 3.
Renew. This is where you might introduce things like earning actual living wages through prison work programs, maybe opportunities for things like spousal visits, reinforcing positive connections.
And the final level.
Level 4, Reinforce. This would be about mastering skills, solidifying positive behaviors, and detailed reentry planning before release.
That sounds structured, logical, but let me push back a bit. A key part of this seems to be earning advancement through objective criteria, like no disciplinary actions for 2 years. Given what we just discussed, the 7x homicide rate, the pervasive drug debt violence is staying out of trouble for 2 years, even possible for many inmates trapped in that environment.
That is the absolute critical challenge. You have to create the safety first for such a model to be truly viable. You can't just impose the behavioral rules without changing the conditions that drive the negative behavior.
So how does the model address that?
The key disruptor it proposes is competing incentives, primarily through those living wage work programs. Let's imagine the power of that. The projection cited is that a working inmate participating fully could potentially leave prison after 5 years, not just with a trade, but with actual savings, maybe around $12,000.
$12,000 saved.
Yes, enough to immediately contribute to victim restitution, child support, secure housing, get tools for their trade. That is a massive incentive to follow the rules, to avoid the violence and debt cycle, an incentive that simply doesn't exist in the current system.
So it's not just about punishment or even just education. It's about creating real economic hope and pathways away from the internal prison economy.
Exactly. The long-term benefits then become tangible. Reduced recidivism because people have skills and resources. Lower prison costs for the state eventually. Less drug use, less violence inside and out. It connects reform to real-world outcomes.
But, and this seems like the crucial but, getting there requires addressing the immediate crisis first.
Absolutely. To reiterate, the DOJ complaint, ADOC's own leaders, everyone agrees that the overcrowding, the severe understaffing, the physical decay, these are the direct causes of the violence right now. You can't effectively run long-term programs, whether it's PEDs or anything else, when people are legitimately fearing for their lives daily.
The digital reform addresses the vision.
But only massive capital investment in facilities and staffing addresses the immediate crisis. You need both, but the crisis demands urgent priority.
So we've really explored this stark tension within the ADOC system, this balancing act, or perhaps imbalance, between launching free digital education and the documented failure to provide safe constitutional conditions. The conflict is just unavoidable.
And the sources make it clear. Alabama's leaders know about the unacceptably high violence. They know the infrastructure is crumbling. They got the new tech, the PEDs, essentially for free because Securus paid. They admit the physical situation is unsustainable. So the central challenge seems undeniable now, doesn't it? If genuine rehabilitation is ever going to take root, doesn't the priority have to shift entirely, away from optics or free digital programs and towards that immediate, massive, expensive investment in staffing and facilities needed just to stop the dying? And maybe the final question for you to consider is, what political or economic calculation allows leaders to acknowledge this deadly crisis year after year, yet continue to defer the fundamental investment required to actually fix it?